Welcome to another bite-sized learning. This presentation deals with hours of service and operating outside the 160-kilometer radius. When operating outside of 160 kilometers from home base, drivers must complete a logbook. The logbook is a way of tracking hours for the previous 7 or 14 days in Canada and 7 or 8 days in the USA. The logbook usually employs the use of a graph that a driver can use to record hours. The graph has 4 duty status that can be used. The duty status identifies what the driver is doing at any given time. The 4 available statuses are off-duty sleeper berth, on-duty driving, and on-duty not driving. Off-duty means a driver is not to do anything for the company and is free to do whatever he or she likes. The driver during this time is not responsible for the truck or the equipment on the truck. Off-duty time is the time a driver records as rest. Sleeper berth is time spent still in the truck but off-duty getting rest in the truck's sleeper berth. The driver has to spend a minimum time in the sleeper for it to actually count towards the day's rest. If the driver is driving alone, then he or she must spend at least 2 hours in the sleeper to be considered rest time. The driver must spend a minimum of 10 hours every day off-duty or a combination of off-duty and sleeper berth. If the driver is driving as part of a team, the driver has to spend a minimum of 4 hours in the sleeper berth for the time to be considered off-duty sleeper berth. The difference between the single driver and the sleeper team is that the single or solo driver has to spend a minimum of 10 hours off-duty in 2 periods. The 2 periods can be 3 and 7, 6 and 4, 5 and 5, 8 and 2. Although the 8 hours rest is also an anchor rest period even without a sleeper. 9 and 1 would not be allowed because the 1 hour would not qualify as sleeper time. The truck must also have a legal sleeper berth. This is defined in the BC Motor Vehicle Act Regulations Division 37. If the truck is not equipped, then the sleeper berth portion of the graph cannot be used. On-duty not driving means the driver is doing anything for the company but not driving. He could be doing a trip inspection before or after driving, inspecting a load or waiting for a load to be inspected, repairing a truck, or waiting for a truck to be repaired. As long as the driver has to wait there to have the load inspected, the time is on duty, not driving. If the driver is free to pursue other interests and not in the care and control of the motor vehicle, then this time can be off-duty time. For example, if a driver takes a truck to have the tires replaced and is free to leave the facility as the truck is in the care and control of the facility, then he or she can leave and do something else. This time can be considered off-duty and go toward the 10 consecutive hours off-duty required every day. There are some exceptions to the rule, and they are as follows. If the driver encounters adverse weather and is slowed down, the driver can drive up to 2 extra hours per day providing he or she could have made the trip in the regular time. The driver must record this as adverse weather and make a note of this in the notes section of the logbook. If driving in other areas, the rules also can and do change. This is true north of the 60th parallel. There, a driver is given more time to drive and also more time on duty in a day. The overall time for the cycle stays the same, but the driver can work and drive longer days than south of the 60th parallel. Drivers must always be in compliance with the hours of service rules for the National Safety Code, or they can face stiff penalties and suspensions. The purpose of the hours of service regulations is to prevent drivers from working too long without proper rest or to drive too far without proper rest. For a driver to work with a logbook, a driver must be disciplined and always count the number of hours to prevent going over the maximum number of hours for the day and for the cycle. A driver is restricted to being on duty no more than 70 hours in 7 days. If the driver achieves the 70 hours before the 7 days are up, then the driver has to reset his hours by taking 36 consecutive hours off duty. The driver after this time will start on day 1 of the 7-day cycle or day 1 of the 14-day cycle, depending on the requirements of the driver. If the driver uses cycle 2, which is 120 hours in 14 days, and achieves 70 hours, he or she must take 24 consecutive hours off before being on duty for another 50 hours. and then the driver must reset the cycle by taking 72 consecutive hours off to reset cycle 2. Whatever area you are in and whichever cycle you are using, always stay in compliance. It is easier than trying to get into compliance. Take a course in logbooks to understand more. There are courses on the internet for this, as well as classes you can attend to better your understanding of using logbooks. If you have questions on this or any safety topic, contact a safety advisor at ohsadvisor@safetydriven.ca or check our resources at www.safetydriven.ca. Safety Driven, driven to improve safety.